House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
It is the second day of the work week, everybody. Half a day, and welcome to House to Home. We're getting started early right here. Liz and Gina are in their humble abodes in Hagåtña. I'm here in Harmon. And ladies, the ADU bill has been passed. I know we've been talking about this, and some people have said, oh, okay, well, to go through the legislative process, it's going to take weeks, if not months. I mean, we talked about this like what? Maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Liz, it passed by a vote of 11-4, so somewhat favorably. The newly elected 38th Guam legislature were in favor of it.
Yes, exactly. 11-4 votes. Of course, I think the four senators that were not in favor kept introducing amendments, of course, that never got voted in. There were some issues from the different government agencies about certain things with the requirements. I think one of the key measures is ADU is accessory dwelling unit, meaning an additional unit to what is currently existing or a unit that they can add when they're building. Now, the ADU, I think Senator Chris Dueñas' objective is to help, it's a start to help alleviate our housing shortage. But the key element with this bill is that if you had if you wanted to build one, you can have your mom, your brother, your sister move in. It has to be, of course, a family member to rent that unit. And I think I'm not sure whether they implemented the window of time that in the event that particular family member moves on or passes, what can they do with that unit? Can they rent it? Can they rent it to anyone? I think there was some opening in that bill that will allow for it at a later time. I don't remember, Gina, whether they restricted that for a 5-year window or whether that was just open. But the key thing as well is that even though you're requesting to build an ADU, you have to conform with the standards, the requirements regarding putting a nitrate system if you have a septic tank. So there are guidelines. It's not one of those where it's free for all, where everyone can do whatever they choose on that property. There are policies and guidelines that are in place that individuals have to follow or contractors have to follow when they're building an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, just because you own the property doesn't necessarily mean you could build, like the Shangri-La or the Taj Mahal or Disneyland. I mean, a lot of people do, like we said, extensions. They do the outside kitchen. But now, Gina, you're actually, as Liz said, you're actually providing hopefully an additional source of income, or in the situation we're in with a housing shortage, another place for a relative or a loved one to stay.
Yeah, because the reason this came about is, I mean, we all know there's a housing shortage, and this is just a mechanism. It is not the solution, but it's a mechanism to kind of add to homeowners' ability to create more units. And the reason ADU makes sense is because you're building on your existing property that you already have your home on. And so the infrastructure is already there, or you can upgrade the existing infrastructure and add on an additional unit. And I think in the bill, Liz, the last version of the bill, one of the units, whether it was the primary unit or the ADU, had to be occupied by an owner. So we'll get the final draft because I know they had hearings on it. There might have been some changes after we had seen the bill. So it'd be good to get a copy and we could share it with Jason and he could share it with the community
Sure.
with our next episode. But the other part of the bill that is really key, and I thought this was, I did not even think that they were going to add this in, but they did, is the component in the bill that says if you have an existing structure, and this is for all our friends and our family who ended up already building an attachment to their home or building on their lots, and they've been told all these years, well, that's illegal. Well, yes, it was illegal. But now in the ADU bill, it says that you can go in and you can apply to have that structure certified and make it legal. Whether you're making it legal so that your family member can continue to live in there, or you're perhaps thinking for the future when your family member doesn't need it and you want it to be a rental, or perhaps, you're just thinking, I want my property to be legal, like most of us want our property to be legal.
Okay, well, one
Go in
question
there
though.
and get it certified.
Yeah, now that it is public policy, does this mean if anyone had been building, kind of like outside the scope of what was allowed before, does this mean they have amnesty for any infractions they may have had previously?
Well, I don't know about amnesty, but the bill says you can go in and
They
get
won't
it
get in trouble.
certified.
Okay,
Yeah,
So I
permit.
guess you can call that amnesty, but it's a process. It's not automatic. So
Right.
amnesty for me is like you pass a regulation and there's, it's kind of a blanket policy and you don't have to do anything special. You just have to prove you fit in that category. That's not the way the bill was written. You must go in and get your property certified. The reason for that is it says you still have to conform to the law.
That's
So you
right.
got to go in and they got to look and they got to say, okay, you know what? Yes, when you built it was not legal, but does your septic tank or are you connected to sewer? If your septic tank is there, it needs to be upgraded to the new nitrate reducing system. I mean, so there's guidelines, but it gives you the ability to make your property legal.
there you go. Okay, Liz, I realize now in hearing all of these discussions that the three of us are having and much broader conversations certainly about this ADU, and a lot of people are very, very interested in it, and that's why we brought it up so many times, is are ADUs, do they necessarily have to have access to the main home, or are they entirely like, structures that are connected to the main facility, but even walled off? So for all intents and purposes, they're their own house, or does it matter?
An ADU can actually be an extension to a current building, an existing building, or it could be a separate structure. Again, we talked about meeting the guidelines and making sure it's within the setback requirements and the septic and the sewer. So there are guidelines. So I know that there was concern that the density would be affected, but where are we creating more people to occupy Guam? We have a set number of population, and I don't think that we're going to go overboard. And because of the rules and the guidelines that are set in place, how many people will actually qualify? I mean, it's not the whole island that will qualify. There's probably a number that will qualify, provided they meet all the setback, the guidelines that have been established by Guam Waterworks, Public Works. So again, there were feedback from the different entities when this bill was brought forward. I know that there were some objections to the certain items in the bill, but I think that part was rewritten to address the different issues that was of concern. But luckily, again, 11 senators passed it. So it's a step forward. It's movement towards helping addressing the shortage, and for family members to start, hey, check your family members. Who has the room to extend to accommodate you to live in it or to rent part of your building? But going back to your question, it would be an extension to what is currently in place or a separate structure. And in the States, they refer to it as a casita. It's a different unit for an in-law unit. Hawaii has laws allowing for this. So there's different states that do allow for it. So it's not something new. But again, I want to emphasize that we have to follow the rules and guidelines.
Okay, so Gina, for people that are now thinking and they're like, okay, I see this as an opportunity. I see this as a chance to be hospitable. I even see it as a chance to be a revenue driver, right? For people that are very forward thinking, as Liz just said, you may want to rent the ADU out to like somebody. Are these ADUs just subject to your normal standard run-of-the-mill lease agreements on Guam, or because of the fact that they share infrastructure with another unit, are there any considerations for that? Or again, does it even matter?
I think it matters. It matters to the person who owns the property, right? Infrastructure should matter to the homeowner that's already there, that's already utilizing the septic tank, the sewer, because what you don't want to do. So what the misconception was a homeowner would be able to just go out there and build whatever they wanted. That's not the case. You still have to go through the building permit process and get all that done. So it's going to conform to the building permit. So it's going to be safe and sanitary, of course. And then your ability, so they had the hearing last week, and we don't know what got put in there that affected your ability to rent it out. But in the original bill, it had said that one of the units must be occupied by the homeowner. And so I believe that that should have stayed in
No,
place.
no, it's still in place.
Yeah. So, and the thing about being able to rent, like build an ADU and rent it out, there was a lot of talk about, well, that's a problem because it's not designed for you to make money. I don't know. I've never seen the problem with individuals wanting to make money on their real estate. I never thought that that was an issue. I always thought, like, when I first, as I was growing up, I was taught that, if you could buy a home, buy a home. If you could invest in real estate, if you ever get to that point where you could invest in real estate, do that because it's a long-term thing. It's going to benefit you and your children. I never saw that as a problem. And I certainly can't afford to hold real estate, not rent it out, because I mean, I can't afford to do that. So for these people that are going to build an ADU, if they have to rent it out at some point or immediately to make money to pay off the loan they just got to build the ADU for future use, I never understood why that was a problem. No, I don't get it actually.
Okay,
Well,
here's an interesting counter argument, and ladies, you can jump on this. We don't have to go Liz and then Gina. Liz and jump in this as you see fit, right? Does the bill in its currently authored form, does it allow for more than one ADU per property? So if you have like the main house, could you build multiple ADUs? And also, if you do plan to use it to rent out to people, does that then mean you have to reclassify your property from residential to commercial?
no, no, I mean, if you're residential, the intent of the bill was for residential, and it's to address the housing shortage.
Sure.
So, from what I gathered, like Hawaii allows for four, I believe Guam allows for one. I'd have to double check if they allow for an additional, but I know it's limited. And the other thing is, I want to emphasize, I know there's word out there, well, this is a realtor bill, and that the realtors were pushing it because they want to make money. How do we make money if, Jason, you want to put your mother in a unit, or your nephew or your uncle, and you're occupying one of the units? Why does that all of a sudden become a realtor issue? And as Gina puts it, if you had a mortgage and your mom moved and then you have an extra unit and you want to rent that out to help pay your mortgage, as she puts it, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with you having the ability to help defray your mortgage costs. And as far as us making the money, we're looking out for the community. We're looking out as a mechanism to help alleviate the shortage. And especially when we're on the line where we're seeing two couples, three couples rent a home together. What sort of living arrangement is that? I mean, they're trying to find a mechanism to live and afford the rent. And the only way to do it with our rising costs is to share. So this ADU bill does help to a big degree.
It's going to help a lot. And Jason, no, when you have when you're doing residential units for lease, it's not necessarily putting your property in the category of commercial. The use is still the same. It is still residential.
Okay.
So, so by definition, you're still residential use, even though you're renting it out. And can I say something about the issue that came up, that this is a realtor, that this bill came about because of the realtors?
Oh boy, here we go.
Well, no, thank you very much for the compliment. We accept it. Thank you for the realtor community that has gone out there and is addressing the needs of the community. And for those realtors that have made the effort to go to the legislature and advocate for these things and make the effort to testify and make the effort, especially John Duenas, who always makes the effort to look at some of the write-ups, to look at some of the amendments, and he makes the effort to address them and send in his testimony. Thank you, John, for taking your time out of your busy work day to do that. And I know you're not doing it for the money. Neither is Liz, neither am I, and neither are the other realtors who show up. We're doing it because we see the people in the community. We see what they're struggling through. We see what's happening to them and their families. And we're concerned and we want to invest our time to serving the community. And that's how we're serving the community, by investing our time. We could be doing other things, but we choose to do that because we understand there's a great need. And so to the people at the legislature who gave us that credit, I want to thank you personally for acknowledging our effort. We really appreciate it. And the next thing that we want to target and we want to focus our attention on is the fact that building permits on Guam is like brain surgery. That process needs to be fixed. And I know there are some sharp senators. This group, this time around, they're sharp. They appreciate what the community is going through. And not only that, they're proactive. And so that's the next thing we have to address. We can't fix interest rates. We can't fix the cost of labor. We cannot fix the cost of material, but we can fix the building permit process. And guys, that's next. I'm looking forward to working with you on that.
That is the next thing in Gina and Liz's crosshairs. Or let's say on their to-do list. Let's be more judicious. Let's say that.
To-do list.
Yeah, we've been working very close with the senators, and of course, they have asked for the Guam Association of Realtors input, and there's a government affairs committee that provide the input. So everything pretty much filters to them. Gina and I, of course, have our own personal agendas and our own personal opinions, which is separate. We don't want to mix that in, but at the same time, we're advocates for improving our community, and we're both not running for senators. We're all here to make a difference in our community.
There you go. I'll check you in two years if you need a campaign manager.
No, we like our day job, but this is, Jason, the thing I don't understand, the legislature has called us in to testify about the building permit process. So many government affairs, committees through the government agency have asked us to go and testify about the building permit process. Contractors complain about the building permit process. I mean, we all complain about it. This time, let's do something about it. It's time.
Yes.
There you go. So the time for talk is done, as they say. That it's now a call to action. So time to go. It's go time.
It's go time.
You got it.
Real quick before I let you ladies go, obviously the realtor community, I would assume, would be very, very pleased at the passage of this bill. Have you received anything from the community at large, from any other people in the real estate pipeline of Guam and part of this ecosystem about the passage of the bill?
I think the realtors are happy that finally the shortage will be addressed. Of course, it's not a fix, but it's a step in that direction. And there are people out there. In fact, what we wanted to do, and they can call us if they'd like, we'd like people to call us and say, hey, we want to show up to say we are in favor of this thing and we have plans to do something about it. So it would have been nice to have them plastered on the screen, but we didn't have enough time to reach out. So, hey, community, if you have something to say, call me or Gina, and then we can have you plastered on the screen with House to Home, with Jason, giving your opinion. And I think that's important. People have to speak up, not just Gina and myself. The community has the right to speak up, and this could be a format for that.
We love having guests on the show. We had a fantastic guest last week, our friend from Coast 360, talking about finances. We would love to hear, and not just when the situation is all rosy and everything like that. We want to hear about your concerns too. But hey, that's what the stage is for.
Yeah, tell us your ADU story.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, we want to hear about ADU building projects. I would love to hear some. Now that the path has been cleared and everything, I would love to hear how everybody's getting creative and on what building plans they have. So if you have something, please come forward.
I think we'd like to hear the ADU story, as well as people who have constructed homes, the problems they've had in the building permit process. That would be another one.
There you go. And I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. So, hey, we open it up now. Don't just post a comment. Give us a call and shoot us a note. And everybody, you too could be on the show, and we want you to be. All right, ladies, thanks. Looks like we got our work cut out for us too.
We do.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you, Jason.
Bye.
House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.